So let's look at some issues with research. We all done questionnaires? Okay, we used to get these in IBM. Does your manager consult you on a regular basis, scale of 0, not at all, 10 all the time? Anybody remember that one? And you know what they want, don't you? Yeah, that was when I phoned up HR, got straight through to the worldwide VP. The Myers-Briggs experiment was still unpopular and my name was on a list, all right? And we were starting then a controlled process to see if we could modify HR's behavior by modifying the feed they got from the employee satisfaction survey. You should never upset techies with good social networks and access to algorithms. We actually proved we could modify their behavior over 3 years, but that's the way it works. Yeah? There are several problems with questionnaires, all right? First of all, and this is the really scary stuff, if you allow people to evaluate, they lock options down too fast. Asking people to evaluate a service or themselves, they worry about what the perception is. Description keeps options open, evaluation closes options down. It's actually quite interesting. We've been doing field ethnography with girls who've been subject to genital mutilation and rape in Africa. They're now acting as ethnographers to people at risk in their own communities, which, by the way, is better therapy than meeting therapists. Far better therapy. Yeah? When we actually look at their narrative maps, they have multiple intervention points because they're describing their day-to-day experiences. When we present the same data to experts in Washington, The Hague, and London for interpretation, they have narrow interventions because they're evaluating the stories based on their expert knowledge. Yeah? Evaluation closes options down. The minute you ask an evaluative question, you can't trust the result. Anybody done 360 feedback? Have you learnt to game it yet? We actually created a website in IBM so you could actually get people to volunteer to be your lower quartile responder because you had to game the system, otherwise people wouldn't buy it. Right? We were quite clever like that. Right? We now do stuff by which a leader nominates any number of people who every time they encounter record the observation and interpret it onto only positive description labels. So let's come back to that manager question to illustrate it. We actually don't ask that question because it's a hypothesis-based question. And I remember saying to IBM HR, I've got several managers. Who hasn't got multiple managers these days? Yeah, so who the hell are you talking about? Sometimes they consult me, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they should, and sometimes they shouldn't. So how am I meant to answer this? And he said, average your experience over the year. And I say, you're HR in a research group? I probably shouldn't have said that. That was another nail in the coffin, but there were already several nails, all right? In fact, there were several coffins. That's what survived me for a long time. Right? I could dodge between them from time to time. Now, the reality is we take a different approach. We go to, say, 5% of the workforce every month, and we say, what story would you tell your best friend if they were offered a job in your workplace? That's called a non-hypothesis-based question. Yeah? And then we say, where would you place this story? And we give people 6 triangles. One of the triangles says the manager's behavior was altruistic, assertive, analytical. Now notice those are 3 positive qualities. In cognitive terms, that engages a novelty receptive part of the brain, not the autonomic side of the brain. So you think more about it. And you don't know what the right answer is, so you can't gift or game. But then the executive or the company sees they're balanced towards analytical, they haven't got altruistic. So then we get into this massive, radical new theory of change. They look at the observations and say, what can I go and do tomorrow to create more observations like these and fewer observations like that?